Welcome back, Voyagers, to episode 5 of Vibes from the Void, or VFTV, the podcast where we talk about all things mythological, folklore, occult, and paranormal. Joining me today is my good friend, Molly, who is becoming a mainstay and an important part of our little show here.
Why, thank you, and hello.
But today we're going to kind of continue what we were discussing in episode 4. And I will acknowledge it has been a little longer than I would have liked before we got back in here to record the next episode, but work and life and...
We live in the South. It's hot.
Yeah, the heat has played a contributing factor, so hopefully we're going to pick this back up and get back to more of a regular schedule as we get out of the summer months. But in episode 4, Cult Following, we were discussing something that's kind of strange, but it's unique because of a lot of the things we talk about. It actually does exist, and cult activity to this day, not just in the United States but around the world, is something that is monitored and studied by government agencies as far as law enforcement and also mental health institutions and major universities. It's a unique phenomenon in that it's, when viewed from the outside, it's kind of hard to understand how somebody who is in that type of community or environment can just see things the way they do, believe things that they do, and it's really just a testament to I guess just like how fucking weird people can be. You know?
People that give you the ick.
The ick. But we discussed last time in large part one of the most active and largest cults in the United States and around the world today, the Jehovah's Witnesses. And we touched on a couple of other small cults in some small part. We did touch briefly while we were having discussion in the last episode the phenomenon of the cult of personality that surrounded Donald Trump in the 2016 election up to the attempted coup on January 6th of last year, 2021. And if you're listening farther in the future, I'm sure the world has ended by now.
Yay.
But I want to delve into that a little more. That cult of personality, not only that surrounded
It's still to this day.
Yeah, I mean, not just Donald Trump, but that was kind of ahead on what's been slowly happening to the political right in America over the last couple of decades.
Absolutely.
I do want to put in a short disclaimer here to say that, admittedly, I'm fairly left-leaning in my politics, but I will try to approach this as objectively as I can, though admittedly it is a little hard.
I cannot promise that, though.
And that's why Molly's here, is we have to keep everything fair and balanced. Looking at you, Phonos.
Hey. I'm just here for pure chaos at this point.
Right, and but this is just something that's too large. It's too big to ignore when we've already delved into cults and the cult mindset and the type of behavior and things that can ensue with that kind of junk. And to put it academically, and this is too big to ignore. So we're gonna touch on this, and I promise after we discuss this, we'll get back into the fun metaphysical spooky shit you guys love.
Yay.
Let's start by discussing Donald Trump before he ever got into the world of politics. Specifically, his show The Apprentice. Before that, I knew his name only because I liked to know random trivia when I was a kid, and I knew he was some supposed bigwig real estate developer, and he was one of the richest men in the world. And I never really was familiar with his personality or the finer points of his life or his political leanings or anything like that until the show The Apprentice. And I actually saw a short article on I want to say it might have been BuzzFeed, how somebody is basically explaining that the producers of The Apprentice are solely responsible for Donald Trump ever winning an American election because they sold him as a product to the American public. These people that were taken in by his personality, that were charmed unexplainably by his entire demeanor, they sold to those people the idea that Trump is a genius businessman when that is in fact not the case. He's left an entire trail of lawsuits and people he has wronged in his wake.
Failed businesses.
Failed business. How many bankruptcies?
Right.
7 or...
How many ex-wives, especially when they want to get to the morality of Trump.
Right. He claims to be one of the richest men in the world because he's such a genius, yet he refuses to disclose his assets to the public. Isn't that part of being president, is you have to basically lay bare all of your assets?
Right.
And that's something to this day, as far as I know, he has never done. Like, there's never been public access to see financially what he's involved in, what all he owns in the way of liquid assets or otherwise. As with all of the ultra wealthy, it stands to reason he probably has hidden assets as well. Swiss bank accounts, properties owned by shell corporations.
Swiss bank account.
I mean, how else do you get around going through that many bankruptcies, yet maintaining that lifestyle and supposed level of wealth? Like, you've got some shit going on there that the IRS, Uncle Sam, they don't know about. There's no other possible explanation for it.
Right, or they do know about it and they're getting paid off because of it.
I mean, I don't think it's possible for him to have been living on credit for that long.
No.
But so we start with The Apprentice. He's marketed to a bunch of people as this genius billionaire real estate developer businessman, and that, I feel like, how many I'm not sure how many seasons it ran. They did The Apprentice, there was the Celebrity Apprentice, and so he had adequate time to be peddled to the less educated, we'll say.
Absolutely, because he was also on any kind of talk show host, radio station, newspaper article you get. So he was a household name before any of it.
Right, and so kind of just running off the momentum from that, I guess, is really what allowed him to push himself as a viable political candidate and not the, volatile, unpredictable man-child he actually is.
The shit stain on the adult diaper of life, you mean?
Yeah, so it's just unreal to me. You could look at somebody like Donald Trump, listen to the way he speaks, look at his history, and think, yeah, we should let this guy run our country.
Or a step further, whenever they, put him on a pedestal and think he's, a messiah or something. The creepy art that they get, dude, and the flags, that's so creepy.
See, now that's the cultist mindset that we're talking about. I'm sure you guys have all seen it. I'm sure you all have Facebook friends or follow people on Twitter or have at least seen retweets of the terrible art of, Trump being the knight in shining armor.
Almost biblically at that point.
On the back of the horse. Yeah. On the cross, carrying the cross,
my God.
Standing up for these.
It's the Rambo ones for me, man.
Oh, those are really good. Yeah, with the miniguns or the hand bows or whatever the hell.
And the bandana. You can't forget the bandana.
Yes, the bandana. They've turned him into a Messiah figure, like you said. It's
their Captain Marvel. It's their, Captain America, literally, in the flesh for them, I guess.
Right, and that's, again, I try to be kind of fair about this. You don't see that shit on the left. People weren't wearing, shirts with Biden, driving a tank or riding a bald eagle.
Right, I've seen, memes of Obama with, sunglasses or some dumb shit like that, but never to the extent of I'm gonna like make this my entire personality.
Right, put this guy on a pedestal to the point where you will defend blatant lies. And it's just, and that's indicative. Like I said, the Trump phenomenon was ahead of where the Republican Party has been heading for the last 30 years, easily, if not longer.
Yeah.
You have the and the thing that kills me is that these people don't understand that they've been brainwashed by fascists, or at the very least extreme nationalists. You have the people who claim, the left are thought police, they're fascists, whatever. Honestly, I get it. I understand to a degree. The people who are offended by everything, I'm going to be mad. It's, what should I call it? A victim Olympics, if you will.
I love that.
But you've seen it. You've seen it. The people
absolutely.
who aren't mad unless they have something to at least claim to be offended by.
Yeah.
If they not
actively search for it.
Yes, not happy unless you got something to be mad about. So I have seen it on the left, but I've seen nothing of the candidate worshipping that I've seen, especially over the last 7 years, since he started campaigning. And you have the anti-intellectualism that you see so often with fascist movements. You have it's 14 signs of fascism. And you see so many of these manifest and what gets me is you'll see it with these people, these Republicans, or even just, people who identify with conservative beliefs. You see so many of those symptoms manifest, yet they still refuse to see that they have been brainwashed. Their party has been hijacked by fascists.
Absolutely.
Like, you guys are no longer the champion of the little man who just wants to start his own business and do right by his family and own his own home and own his own land.
The American dream.
And not be told what to do by the American government. And you've completely flipped that. You've sided with corporations that oppress the proletariat. You worship these politicians who constantly keep the average man down, your countrymen of the country you claim to love. It's absolutely astounding. You have the correlation, and I've been waiting to bring this up because this is something that's always been funny to me, is you have the correlation between people who have received at least a little post-secondary education in the way of college, they tend to lean left politically. At the very least, most of the time, they're going to be left of center. And a lot of the conservatives, especially your everyman, they swear by it, that it's because post-secondary education is a liberal conspiracy to indoctrinate the youth to be inclusive and to ultimately support a communist takeover, which it's never going to happen.
Right.
So it's just amazing to me. They refuse to see that correlation, and you can lay it out for them. They say whoever did that study was biased.
Right. There's always an excuse.
Like, peer review doesn't exist. It was the same thing with misinformation
That's why they don't believe in science.
Well, the misinformation with COVID.
Yeah.
You can buy a politician, you can buy a scientist. Yeah, but there are going to be other groups of scientists studying the same problem, or the virus, or the phenomenon, that are not being bankrolled by the same people. Charlatans are called out. The scientific community self-polices, and they hold themselves and their colleagues to a higher standard. So you don't have that type of bullshit permeating the scientific community like you do the misinformation in on the internet. And as a result, in the citizenry.
Yeah.
So you have today this is past us now. If you're listening to this is in the past. But
Oops.
as of right now, today, August 7th, 2022, you have Joe Biden in office. And anybody who knows anything about the American government, or really any government of any kind of sizable country, government is a very big, very slow-moving machine. So the things that you see happening in the present are very often the result of the administration who has just left office. And you see this constantly with every election cycle. We went from... We'll start with Clinton. We went from Clinton, who was so adept at the job and crossing party lines to get people to work together, with him being the charismatic person he is, or at least he was. He managed to have bipartisanship work so well during his administration over the 8 years he was in office that we actually, for the first time in about 40 years, we actually had a surplus with our national budget. And we haven't seen it again since then. And it's the funniest thing. You see that into George W. Bush, whose administration single-handedly destroyed the American economy, ran up the national deficit to trillions and trillions of dollars to pursue his own interest, and his it was basically a personal vendetta.
Absolutely.
The Second Persian War, or Operation Iraqi Freedom. That's the funny thing to me, is he inherited such a booming economy. The country was in great shape, single-handedly ran it into the ground. Then Obama was voted in, and as we're seeing all of the terrible consequences of W's administration, it's Obama's fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to blame whoever is in office at the time. So, again, we have a Democratic president who did his best to balance the budget and handle the mess he was given. He brought down unemployment to under 4%. He was able to decrease the national deficit by at least some, and we were starting to recover. Inflation was low. Gas prices were low because we were importing a lot of oil from Canada, I believe it was. But everything was more or less, we were on an uptick, we'll say. And then Trump comes in, and all of a sudden, as immediately as soon as Trump takes office, things aren't so bad anymore. Yeah. Everything good that we were seeing, on the tail end of the Obama administration, that he
was claiming for his own.
He worked for 8 years for. All of a sudden, Trump's the one who did it. He hasn't even taken office yet, and he's the one who did it.
He's got a great liking for coattails. I can see that.
Yeah. And then here we are again. Trump's out of office after only 4 years. And I still blame a lot of what's going on today in the way of inflation, the high gas prices, our weakened foreign policy. It's a direct result of the Trump administration.
Piss poor management.
Not only did you have the tax cuts, which, by the way, only are permanent for corporations and individuals that make, I think it's over so many hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And then the everyman, you and I, we go back to normal. So people, they see these immediate things that are able to be passed immediately. They say, oh, this is good. And then now that we're running into the terrible consequences of what Trump did over the last 4 years, one of the biggest things being the mismanagement of the pandemic, now it's Biden's fault.
Oh, of course.
There's always a blame, but that's the thing, is I do not identify as a Democrat. I'm a registered independent, and I identify as a leftist because I hold the Democrats accountable as well.
Right.
I mean, if And here's the thing: is not only do we have things like the economy being in the toilet, the housing market's in the toilet again for the third time in the last 20 years. Auto inflation is ridiculous. I mean, even used cars are going for so much money now. That's the thing, is we finally made it to middle class, and now we're fucking poor again.
Yes.
And it's just something, as many times as we've seen this shit go down, us being millennials, it's worse now than I've ever seen it. Especially, Trump's out of office, like you said. That's another thing. He was able to nominate 2 Supreme Court justices, and with the passing of RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, it was the court was inevitably going to become skewed. So now we're at a point where the Supreme Court's decision on Roe versus Wade has been overturned because conservative judges outweigh the more left-leaning judges, or even ones that are just left of center.
Right.
They outnumber them in a way where they can make these huge sweeping decisions that, despite there being a Democratic administration in office and the left still having the majority in Congress, they can still make these decisions that are just god-awful. And that's the funny thing to me with conservatives. Oh, we're small government when it comes to exploiting the proletariat, when it comes to not regulating large corporations, when it comes to not providing health care. But when it comes to taking away the rights of people who are not white, who don't profess to be Christian,
absolutely,
who are not from our country originally, when it comes to taking rights away from those people, any marginalized group, then it's authoritarianism.
Right.
And make no mistake, Voyagers, that's exactly what it is. So I want to thank everybody for joining us for episode 5 of VFTV. We do appreciate you tuning in and sharing the experience.
The elevated disc.
But we are actually the next episode, we'll be back to, like I said, the normal mystical spooky shit that you're all really here for. Like I said, this was just something that was a little too big to ignore in the vein that we were discussing. But adjacent to what we've been talking about for the last couple of episodes, there is something that is I guess it's just an adjacent topic. We're going to be talking about secret societies and magical orders. Including but not limited to the Ordo Templi Orientis, the Golden Dawn, some of the work that Aleister Crowley did back in the day, and I also want to talk about a couple other modern orders, like the Temple of Ascending Flame, Become a Living God. That's become pretty controversial over the last couple of years. And also I want to talk about the current Church of Satan and the Temple of Set, which we have to talk about the Church of Satan if we're going to talk about the Temple of Set.
Absolutely.
But again, Voyagers, thank you for stopping by and indulging with us, and we will see you next time. Stay safe out there, friends.